because I know it's a Saturday afternoon and you could have done other things, and I really appreciate you taking your Saturday afternoon to come and listen to me. It's always a pleasure for me to be in Japan, and especially to be with Dr. Shirawa's group. So I'm very, very happy and privileged to be with you. So what I'm going to try to do today is really semi-informal in terms of how I'm going to present the different aspect of product use, what I call workshop. But before I do that, I'd like to spend some time on not only my approach in product development, but also my philosophy as a whole in terms of wellness. The company is PHYTOMEDIC Labs, and this is my motto: unraveling nature's secrets for a healthy living, but we do it scientifically. Because nature has all kind of things that we can use. We just need to learn to do it. Instead of doing it empirically, we adopt science to be able to extract, study, research, and make sure we have the bioactive ingredient components that we can use for health reasons. The other concept that is very fundamental to what I do is what I call the wellness circle. A lot of times we talk about holistic medicine. We talk about integrative, complementary integrative medicine. But even so, when we do, people tend to look at different pieces of the body. That's a big mistake. We all are doing it different ways. When you have a patient, you have a whole person. Not only the body of the person, but the things that are ancillary to that person. And I'll give you an example one time, just that I may come to that example. I was working with a lady for a long time, nutrition-wise, and do all the different things. And we talk, and she's changing her diet, some about her lifestyle and product, and so on and so forth. One day we were sitting talking, and she said, "Dr. M, my problem is I'm hungry for love." It really touched me, because what she said, she just wants somebody to hug her, to show her that she's loved. How many times? So we could give that person every kind of medication, but it's not going to help her. And recently I was talking to a lady, she works every day. She's a high quality nurse. And she works even she doesn't have to work, but she works every day, and she cannot sleep well, and she has all kind of cortisol, because her cortisol is always high, so which means that can affect her wellness. So we're talking, I said, "Why do you work so long? You make a good money. You don't really need some money to work 2 or 3 jobs." So I started asking her questions. Find out really her problem is she's not happy at home. She cannot stand to be at home with her husband. So any excuse she has to go and work outside, she does that. Now what's problem is she's hurting. So we can do everything here, but I have to address her surrounding. I have to make her face the reality and solve that toxic environment, what I call toxic relationships, toxic environment. And all of that is part of the body, because if not, you're just making Band-Aid treatment. If you don't understand, and one of the things we all forget, so I already mentioned that, but I will come to the main concept, that actually the citation by Hippocrates, who is what we call the grandfather of modern medicine. But in PHYTOMEDIC Labs, we focus on all different phyto-nutrients, including enzymes, antioxidants, and various other plant as well as marine molecules. We work looking for any functional foods and medicinal plants. That's the reason I travel all over the place. Like every time I come in Japan, I probably will be in Thailand or in Singapore or Malaysia, or different places, looking at the different plant materials and see how traditionally people have used them, and how we can take them to the labs and be able to study them and find out how to be able to use them. And we do, we have a collaboration with we have collaboration with various scientists, and we always make sure that products are safe, they are effective, and they have scientific facts to back them. Those are some of the different things we do, both the technical as well as the research services for not only for our product, but we also provide consulting R&D for different companies. This is just our different product. Okay, I come back to what I was starting with, which is what I call the healing or treatment approach. We have what we call the pharmacological, but we also what we call the holistic or integrative complementary medicine. And what I was mentioning earlier is it's very important to know the person that is to be treated or healed. Until you know that person, you're really not doing a good job. And you have to also establish a rapport with that person. What makes, I don't know much, mostly about Japan, but in the US, you have the holistic and integrative medicine becoming very big because it takes time and it costs maybe money because you have to spend more than 5 minutes with a patient. In a normal traditional or holistic allopathic medicine, the nurse prepares the patient and you come, you look at, you see the patient briefly. Sometimes you don't even have a dialogue with the patient. You see them briefly, you look at their chart, you prescribe the medicine, you go to the next one. You don't have time. And in fact, it used to be that even in the US, if you spend too much time with the patient, your insurance company will call you and say, hey, you're spending too much time with one patient, you're costing us money. We don't want that. So that's the reason a lot of people go to the holistic integrative type of medicine, because you take the time to understand the patient, to know the patient. And that's what you went to school to do. All your training is to be able to help heal the people. And the reason I'm saying all of that is this is made, which we forget by Hippocrates. You see, he said about over 400 or 500 years ago, or more than that, it's far more important to know what person the disease has than what the disease the person has. This is so fundamental that we forget. What he's saying is, don't worry about the disease first. Worry about the person. So what we're trying to do with the whole thing about the wellness circle, it's not new. It's been said hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But we forget that. And that's what we have to always look into what. So when I talk to somebody, I think we pass some questionnaires. Usually I have people fill out those questionnaires. Sometimes they say it's long. Sometimes they say, why do you ask me this question? And sometimes I ask more questions actually. That's just to help to start the discussion, the conversation. So I ask more questions. What do you live? What do you work? What kind of job you do? Because sometimes what kind of job you do may have other kind of what we call sick building syndrome, where you have air pollution, you have things that you contact all the time. So you have to know your person, you have to know your patient. That's the fundamental. And this is a statement I invite all of you to find it and make a big poster of it and put it in your offices, because it will always remind you that you need to know the person more than you need to know the disease. And the patient expectation and responsibilities. You and your patient have to be partners. That's very, very important. You have to be partners. In a normal thing, we consider ourselves, okay, we are doctors, we have those degrees and so on and so forth, but that doesn't necessarily mean we know everything. Somebody may not have those degrees, but they know a lot. One time I was in India. I went to, my taxi driver took me from the airport, and before he took me to my hotel, he took me to somebody's house, his grandmother's house, so that until I can check into my hotel. So we were sitting, I saw the trees there, which I know the tree a long time ago, but I saw the tree in their backyard. I said, oh, do you have this tree here? I said, what do you use it? He said, oh, the grandmother, he asked his grandmother, and he was translating to the grandmother. Said, yeah, we use this tree for everything. So I guarantee you, I spent almost 5 hours that afternoon with that lady. because she knows a lot of things that is not in the books. But I learn from her. But in order for me to learn from her, I don't have to display my knowledge. I don't have to display my degrees. I have to come to her with humility. When I come to her with humility, she can feel good that she is teaching me something. But if I come to her like I know everything, she may not provide me information. So it's always important to develop the partnership, and then your patients also will feel comfortable sharing with you. In the US, about now it's been almost 10 years ago, the federal government has realized that many doctors don't know about dietary supplement, don't know about herbal medicine, and all these kind of things. So if you go see, if I'm a patient, I go see a doctor, and the first time I say, oh, do you know about this product? Doctor said, no, don't take this. It's not good. Do you think next time I will ask him again? I will not ask him. But if I know the product works for me, I will keep taking it. But I will never discuss it with my doctor. What happens? The doctor may prescribe me a product that may be antagonistic with what I'm taking, or they may be synergistic. Let's say, for instance, I'm taking a lot of proteins, and then the doctor prescribes warfarin or coumarin to me, which is both of them are blood thinning agents. So now my blood is going to be thin much more, and so if I have a slight bleeding, it can create a bad hemorrhage. So all of those is to be able. So the government gave 2 university medical schools. It gave them each of them $1.5 million to start studying. So for the doctors themselves become knowledgeable, and also find a way to communicate with the patient. If a patient come and ask the doctor can say, oh, I don't know this product, but let me study it. Let me go ahead and study it. You develop a rapport, which when you develop a rapport, you enhance compliance. So whatever you tell the patient to do, they will do. And it's vice versa. And the partnership is very, very important. There is an example also I studied on where they took about 4,000 women who have had breast cancer in the US, different multi-center studies. And they went back to each of them, asked them what are the circumstances from the time you've been diagnosed to everything else. So they asked them. Some of the women they found out were able to respond very well with the medication and be well remediated are the ones that from the beginning the doctor was acting as a partner. The doctor said, oh, this is what you have. This is the problem we're going to deal with. You and I are going to work together. We're going to be partners. I'm like your coach. I'm guiding you, but you have to do most of the work. So, and also the doctor has to present a positive outcome. Yes, nothing is 100% sure, but a positive outcome, because when you do the positive, you lift that person's mind, you lower their cortisol level, you lower their stress, you give them a positive attitude. And that by itself, because anytime you lower cortisol, you strengthen the immune system. So that's how they find out. Most of the patients who have had good doctors, their condition was so, but the ones who the doctor come and say, oh, I don't know what to do. Because you leave the doctor's office, you're already depressed. Not only you have a serious disease, but now you are depressed because the doctor basically saying, there is nothing I can do for you. That's not good. That's why we encourage people to develop this kind of partnership. But if there is a problem with it, because it costs money. Insurance companies don't want to pay for that. So you have to find a balance, how you address that issue. So the healing process, you need to focus on the whole body, what the body is made with, and what it is made for. And again, I say wellness constitutes a state of dynamic biological harmony within the structural and functional basis of the body. It's a balance of biological normality of the cell that constitutes wellness. And the lack of symptoms, because that's what sometimes we see, because if I don't have symptoms, then I think I'm good. No. It doesn't mean I'm good. Because most of the diseases we have now in developed societies around the world, like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular condition, all of those, they don't open overnight. They don't happen overnight. They take sometimes longer. Cancer can take 30, 40, 50 years before it develops. Because since this morning, most of us have had some potential cancer cells in our body. But fortunately, our DNA repair system was able to detect them and correct the system before they become cancerous. But if you are under stress, you don't eat very well, you're not resting your body, then your body becomes very susceptible. It becomes a fertile ground for diseases. So that's why it's very important not to wait until you see noticeable symptoms to think that to go see the doctor. It's always, prevention is always good, because a lot of things happen over a long period of time. The constant injuries of the body, and I call injury anything that happen that disturbs the homeostasis. So when I mention injury, it doesn't mean that I have a puncture. It doesn't mean that it's a physical injury. It can be a metabolic injury. Anything that disturbs balance, it's cellular injury, and you have to think about it in those terms. So if I'm eating too much of let's say if I'm eating too much salt, yes, that can create a nutritional imbalance. Even water, if I drink too much water, it can kill me. So balance is important. Environmental pollutants, biological agents, whether bacteria, virus, parasite, poor lifestyle, too much alcohol, smoking, not sleeping, things like that, stress, living conditions, inadequate stress management, all of those constitute what can be injuring the cell and the body. And this balancing process starts from the genetic makeup of the parents, the conditions in the mother's womb, which we discussed last time I was here, when we discussed what happened in the womb. Because from the time you are in the mother's womb, already there are diseases that you can develop if the mother is not eating properly, if she has a stress in her condition, or if the person hasn't been breastfed. So in the questionnaires that I have passed, you will see one of the questions I always ask people: have you been breastfed? Because if somebody says they haven't been breastfed, I know that their digestive system is not perfect. And if the digestive system is not good, nothing else, because every system that in the body depends on the provision, the acquisition of nutrients that you put in your body. So if that's not good, of course you don't sense that. You say, oh, I don't have any digestive discomfort. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect. Because nobody is not perfectly made. And we have to keep that always in mind. So the weaning time, for instance, if people who haven't been breastfed, and what time was they exposed to diet, to regular food, what kind of pollutant they were exposed to, how the ability of to manage stress, not only within the family but by themselves, even when they grow up, because we all learn how to manage stress from our parents, from our surroundings, and the quality and quantity of nutrients. This is where we come to chronological age versus biological age. I focus a lot on biological age, which is a lot of, like here, for instance, this clinic is called anti-aging. I use the term of biological youthfulness as another term that I use to indicate anti-aging processes. Of course, lifestyle habits. So all of those you have to know about the patient in order to know what you have to do with them, what you need to do to be able to help them. The body is a complex biological system, and any deficiencies can result in, even if you don't feel it, some deficiency can be lethal, some of them you don't see it until much later on in life. They found out, for instance, many cases of diabetes or cardiovascular disease are conditions that have happened 50 years prior to when the onset of the disease come up, because condition that whether the mother has eaten enough protein or she hasn't had a good diet during her first or second trimester of pregnancy. So this brought me to a concept that I also I introduced here in Japan, and I talk about in different other countries, what I call the BPS, biological positioning system. And I use that because all of us know GPS, and it's the same concept, biological positioning system. Because the body is a dynamic, life is a journey. So at any time, I need to know what is my position, my biological positioning. So the same thing, I know what I can follow my GPS. I want to follow my biological positioning, and in order to follow my biological positioning, I have to know all the conditions surrounding me before and where I was yesterday and where I am today. What are my conditions? And if I follow that, which lead me to one thing I always teach people to do is to learn to listen to your body. Before you go to take a blood sample or urine sample or something to do diagnosis, you can listen to your body and be able to tell what's going on early enough. And that's how you can follow your biological positioning. So those are all the different things that you can do. And the biological positioning is really a key element which goes back again to knowing the person, like I mentioned earlier, know the person. So it implies dynamism or journey of cells and molecules. The quality of that journey is a function of factors influencing cells in the body. The level of that quality is referred to as a degree of wellness or health status. Because if I feel good, then I think I'm very well. But if I'm diseased, then I'm not. And many cancer situations, when they follow them also, they find out maybe month prior, the person has had some very serious stress that they were not able to manage. There is an example, for instance, that I usually give. I think I gave it last time. I'm going to repeat it here. One time I was giving a lecture in Houston, Texas, and after the lecture, I was talking about those different concepts. One of the doctors came to me in a break. He said, "You know, some of the things you are saying it now start making sense to me." He said he's a doctor who lives in Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona. He said he had a lady patient who had some kind of skin disorders. It's like psoriasis, eczema. He wasn't sure what it was, but she came to see him. She went to all different doctors, but they never been able to do anything for her. So finally, because he's an alternative, he's an MD who practices alternative, so she wanted to come and see him. So he started talking, and I said, "When did it happen?" She said, "It happened 17 years ago." 17 years ago, but she couldn't do anything. She was say, "Okay, so tell me what happened." She said, "Oh, around the time that happened, oh, that's when I found out my husband was having an affair." Okay, we all know stress increases cortisol, and cortisol reduces your immune system, so you get a lot of kind of thing. And he said, and as soon as she mentioned that to him, she also said, "You know, but after I confronted him, he did everything humanly possible to stop and not to continue to do it." And he asked her, he said, "So did you?" We said, "What did you stay or after you still with him?" She said she stayed because they have a baby. So now the baby is 17-year-old. So the baby is about to go to college. She says, "There is nothing I can do until you forgive him and you let that luggage, that baggage that you're holding go. There is no medication that can treat you. Because as long as you keep cortisol in your body as a high, your body cannot respond to any treatment. And cortisol is one of the killers because we don't know how to release, especially us as humans. We think, so we say, what if? And what if becomes our reality, but the body doesn't know if it's reality or not. The body acts like now you're scared, you're afraid, you are under stress. So that reason it always, it reminds me a Chinese monk phrase that the Chinese monk said. He said, "A problem you can solve, don't worry about it. A problem you cannot solve, don't worry about it." So if you adopt your life in that sense, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. I mean, you do as much as you can, but don't take it with you all the time. Don't take it with you. One of the example I gave last time, let's say for instance, this bottle doesn't weigh much. But if I keep this bottle for 5 minutes, it's okay. 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, my hand it's going to be numb. Just a little, the weight hasn't changed, but now I cannot hold it. That's exactly the same thing you have to do with the stress. A little stress, if you keep it if it is okay, I do what I can do, I just put it down, I move on. But if I keep it, then the stress basically is going to be so heavy that I'm going to fall because I cannot hold it. And that's what stress does to us. That way we have to manage stress. So so the more abuse the body we put on the body, the earlier it gets overwhelmed and doesn't perform properly. When people talk about anti-aging, for instance, or disease susceptibility, it's because we don't. We abuse the body. We abuse it. We do a lot of things. We don't sleep correctly. We don't eat correctly. We don't manage stress correctly. So we abuse the body. Now this brings me to what the chart I have here. This is just a chart that I did, and it's in fact we are in another edition maybe coming in the next few months. But it's just I use that sometimes when people come to I talk to people. I use this chart. I say, okay, today you come here. This is where you are. This is the point. So I show them where they are. I say, okay, do you know how? See the arrows that brought you to this point. So I show them all the arrows pointing to where they come, so they know where they come from. And I say, okay, you saw the arrows from here, you see some arrows going this way or that way. So I say, this is your biological positioning. Today you are here. So this is your map. So those are the conditions that brought you here, and this is where you're going to go if you don't take care of your problems today. You can use that as a didactic, as something, as an educational to with your patient. It helps them so they see, and you make them also be part of their solution. They have to be part of the solution. So the different biological positioning factors, like I mentioned, nutrients, and it's not what people talk about nutrition. Yes, nutrition is good. Good nutrition. When people say, I say, oh, what do you diet? They say, oh, I eat very well. I have good diet. I say, I know you do. Please tell me what it is. Because I need to know. When they start listing all the things they do, you will find that there are some things that are not correct. People say, oh, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. I say, okay, that's good. Okay, do you eat proteins? Oh no, maybe once a week or twice a week I eat some proteins. And I said no. One statement also that I like every doctor or even family member to put in their homes, a poster. Every molecule in your body is either made of proteins or made by proteins. Think about it. Everything is made of proteins or made by proteins. And the proteins, you cannot make proteins from carbohydrates. You cannot make proteins from lipids. But you can provide energy from protein, but you cannot do the reverse. So proteins is something you cannot play with. If you look at it in the underdeveloped countries, you see that in fact, you've seen pictures of little boys naked, with a big belly, skinny, with a big belly. Most of those kids, they die because of the immune system is low. Because your body takes, through catabolism, your body breaks down the proteins to be able to supply, to make antibodies and immune cells and immune molecules. The body will go, if you don't provide your body with a protein, the body will go all the way to even the heart. The body will start breaking the heart up to a certain percentage. and then stop. And then after that, the body will not do anything else. So proteins, when people, so especially I deal with that a lot when people trying to lose weight. They look at it and say, oh, I'm not going to eat the proteins, and because I want to keep my weight. I say, no, but you are increasing your susceptibility to disease. Because the little disease, the little bacteria, the little things, you may not be able to mount an adequate immune response to fight it. So, and the other thing is cardiovascular and lymphatic function. That is important because no matter how good your nutrition is, you have to have a transport system in your body. The lymph and the blood constitute the vehicles, the navigation system that carries all the cells, immune or nutrients, everything else, and also removes the waste from the body. Today, if here, for instance, we are waiting for some miracle foods or whatever, we're waiting, and then they say, the company say, oh, we're going to deliver it to you in 1 hour. But all the highways, the traffic jam. We depend on that food in order to survive. And they say, no, with the traffic jam, we cannot get it to you until maybe tomorrow morning. We are not going to be in good condition. And that's the same thing with the body. If your blood circulation is not very well, it doesn't matter what medication you take. Even if it's the most effective medication, it doesn't get what it needs to go. If it's a nutrient, if you collect a lot of carbon dioxide that you cannot eliminate, your whole pH is going to be very acidic, and it will create destruction of many cells. And those are the kind of things that you have to always consider in consideration. So that is when people say, every time I recommend something, I say, I want you to take Protein C. They say, no, but I say, no. You want, whatever you're doing, even if you have a good diet, you want the nutrients to be able to get to the cells. So maintain a good blood rheology. You have depending on the scientific studies, you have between 60 to 100,000 kilometers of blood vessel. If you put all the blood vessels end to end, that's the length of the blood vessel. So